Hello, I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk to you about our IAU 100 special project called Ambassadors for Astronomy. This is co-organised by myself, Chris Harrison, and Lucy Moorcraft. And on the screen I also have listed our fantastic group of ambassadors themselves. More about them shortly. Just give it a little background, this project stemmed from a similar project I was running whilst I was a fellow at the European Observatory, Southern Observatory, ESO, and we were sending early career researchers to ESO member states to perform outreach activities on the ground. And this IAU special project had the opportunity to expand that to some other countries. So here we go. Little overview first before going into a bit more detail. The primary objective of our project was to raise awareness of astronomy, technological developments, and international collaborations through early career researchers from the European Southern Observatory, acting as ambassadors for astronomy. And this was to go in line with many of the IAU 100 aims and objectives. The countries were selected to be where astronomy research is less developed than ESO member states. More about that in a minute. And the main deliverables was that the ambassadors would provide astronomy outreach centres with hands-on workshop materials, training sessions, and ongoing communication and support. The primary audience of the project was the local science communicators and the outreach centre staff, while the secondary audience would be the visitors to the observatories who'd get to experience these workshops. So firstly, how do we go about selecting the countries for this project? Well, we had a limited budget, so we couldn't do too many countries. But we decided to focus on non-ESO member states where we thought astronomy might be a bit less developed. And we needed a PhD student or a fellow at ESO who's a national of that country or at least speaks the language so they could go and visit the country to perform the activities. So within these constraints, we ended up with a list of 5 countries. That was the Ukraine, where we worked with a planetarium there, Croatia, where we worked with a science and astronomy group there for outreach, and Slovakia, where we work with an observatory, Hungary with 2 public observatories, and Bulgaria and public astronomical observatory there too. So there were the 5 main countries, but as a bonus, we managed to save a little bit of money, and we had the nice opportunity to coincide with the IAU Science Symposium 356, which was going on in Ethiopia. Many of the ESO students and fellows were going to be going there anyway, so we took that opportunity to create some more workshops and carry out similar activities in Ethiopia. So that was a very nice bonus from this project. And just to give some context, when we looked at the 2018 QS World University Rankings for physics and astronomy, it showed that these countries had no universities in the top 250, whilst all of the ESO member states did have at least 1 university in that list. The ambassadors themselves, a fantastic group of dynamic, young, great people who visited the countries for us, and these were 10 ESO PhD students or fellows as of 2019, and they represented 10 different nationalities in total. Now 8 of those 10 are now working in astronomy, but in different countries and different institutes around the world, whilst 2 of the fellows are still there finishing their time at ESO. In terms of the workshops we developed, we created 3 different workshops with corresponding hands-on activities, and they were designed to closely align with the priority topics of the IAU 100 scheme overall. So we had 1 workshop on 100 years of astronomical telescopes, talking about how telescopes have evolved from simple refracting telescopes through to giant telescopes like the extremely large telescope. We had a workshop all about discovering new worlds, exoplanets, and how we might image those, and a workshop all about seeing the invisible, how we can use infrared light to discover new and amazing things about the universe. And these workshops stemmed from those developed at the ESO Supernova. Particularly Wolfgang Weiser was the brainchild behind many of the kits that we developed, and working with him and Tanya Johnston, we developed these workshops, adapted them for this particular IAU 100 special project. Looking at one of those in a little bit more detail, here's a photograph of some of the kit from the 100 Years of Astronomical Telescopes workshop. We can see lenses and mirrors and an optical bench, and we were using these to talk about telescope designs. And in the bottom image, what we have is our laser cannon, which sends out parallel beams of laser light and we have a light ray box which allows us to see these light rays. And if we put this light ray box at different parts in the optical system, we can see how the light rays are bent and change direction by the optical components. The second part of the workshop was all about segmented mirrors. So we built little pieces of mirror with little actuators on the back that you can adjust the mirrors. And we talked about building giant mirrors from little pieces of mirror. And again, using lasers, the activity is to show how you can focus all of the laser beams into the center, which is lots of fun as well as informative. And the second workshop, some little images from there, we made some exoplanet models, which is basically a series of lights representing the planets and the stars. Here's 4 of those, and we modified a webcam to see in the infrared. So if you took a picture in the infrared, you can see the planets, and as shown on this image on the left. Now this image on the right is taken with just a regular optical image camera, and all we see is the bright central star. So we use that to talk about imaging exoplanets, as well as some activities around it about learning about discovering these new worlds. So there's 4 steps to our project. The first step was to construct all of these kits, and with 6 countries and 3 workshops, that was 18 sets of workshop kits that had to be constructed. So we spent many, many hours in the supernovae workshop building these, and it brings back some difficult memories of how many hours we were in there, and you can see all of the pieces, and we were lining them up. Many, many pieces were needed to be built, and then we put these together to make little kits that would be sent to each of the 6 countries that we worked with. As well as that, we had to translate the information sheets into multiple languages. So thank you to the ambassadors for doing all that hard work. Then the next step was to train the ambassadors in the different workshops. So as well as general outreach and communication training, we also trained them in the 3 specific workshops, how to use these to portray the different key messages we wanted to get out of this project. That was lots of fun too. And then the next step was to send these kits off to the various education and observatory centers that we were working with. Sometimes we put them in a box and shifted them by post, which was generally okay. We had a little trouble with customs in the Ukraine, but we managed to do it. Or else we put them in our suitcases and we took them with us on the aeroplane, which raised some eyebrows at security. What's all these lasers and mirrors doing in your suitcase? But in the end, all the kits got to their destination. And then the ambassadors would show up and they would talk to the local science communicators, both at the outreach centers themselves and also more science communicators who came to the training, so we could talk to them about how to use these kits and send out the messages that we wanted to send. And finally, step 4 is all about the project sustainability and legacy. So once the ambassadors had left the kits behind, as well as the training, the local science communicators were able to go on and use these kits and continue to spread the messages and give these experiences to the local people. And we've been keeping in contact with them, and we know that they're being used regularly. You know, pandemic aside, these projects are now part of the regular programs in these various centers. We're particularly happy about what happened in Ethiopia, where our kits went on their Astrobus, that was led by Esti there, and they went to visit thousands of people in the rural communities of Ethiopia who got to see these workshops. And the Croatian group also took our workshops and adapted them, took the lasers and started to use it to explain about the impact of lasers on biological materials. So that's also fantastic that these kits have been developed beyond what we originally intended. And the other part of this, and one of the best outcomes from my perspective, is what the ambassadors themselves got out of it. So they've built these relationships that are ongoing with the education centers, which is great. The ambassadors got some fantastic experiences and skills themselves, and a real sense of pride of being able to support their home countries. So a couple of quotes. Here's one from Rosita, who visited Bulgaria. I had the opportunity to bring with me not only outreach materials, but also ESO's vision and the experience I've gained. I hope that with these visits, I'll be able to inspire more students to follow their passion for astronomy. And then one other quote from Barnabas, who went to Hungary. I'm glad that I could be part of a program that delivered something new to our observatory, showing how the technique of astronomy works. So really, for me, it's fantastic to see, as well as the local people benefiting, the ambassadors themselves had some great experiences and takeaways from this project. So that's everything I wanted to say. I'm really pleased to receive any questions, whether it's as part of this conference or in email follow-up. Thank you very much.